The stars had always been cold to humanity, but 300 years ago, they became colder than anyone could have imagined. Commander Nathan Cole sat alone in his quarters aboard the starship Horizon's Edge, watching old footage that had been passed down through generations. The images showed human families being dragged from their homes on distant worlds. Children crying as soldiers from a dozen alien species forced them onto transport ships. Men and women who had spent their entire lives building colonies, farming alien soil, and raising families under foreign suns were told they had exactly 48 hours to leave everything behind. The Galactic Collective had spoken with one voice that day. 12 species, united in their fear of humanity, had voted to expel every human from civilized space. The Valorians, beings made of living crystal who believed themselves to be the most ancient and wise species in the galaxy, had led the charge. Their first minister had stood before the collective council and delivered a speech that would echo through human history. "Humans are too dangerous," he had said. "They breed too quickly. They adapt too fast. They ask too many questions and accept too few answers. If we allow them to remain among us, they will consume everything we have built. For the sake of galactic peace, they must go." The vote had been unanimous. Not a single species had spoken in humanity's defense. Nathan closed the footage and stared at the wall of his quarters. His grandfather had been 7 years old during the expulsion. The old man had told Nathan stories of those terrible days, of families being separated at gunpoint, of ships being fired upon when they tried to return for loved ones left behind. Over 2 million humans had died during the forced migration. They called it the Great Exile, and every human child learned about it before they learned to read. A knock at his door pulled Nathan from his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Lieutenant Maria Santos entered, her dark eyes filled with concern. She had served with Nathan for 8 years, and she knew him better than anyone. When she saw the historical footage paused on his screen, she understood immediately. "You're thinking about them again," she said. "The ones who threw us out." "Hard not to," Nathan replied. "We've been picking up strange signals from collective space for weeks now. Something is happening out there." Maria sat down across from him. "Whatever is happening, it's not our problem. They made that very clear 300 years ago." She was right, of course. After the expulsion, humanity had retreated to the far edge of the galaxy, to a cluster of star systems that the collective had deemed worthless. The region was filled with unstable stars, asteroid fields, and planets that required massive terraforming efforts to become habitable. The other species had expected humans to die out within a few generations. They had been very wrong. Humanity had not only survived, but thrived. Cut off from collective technology, they had invented their own. Denied access to established trade routes, they have built new ones. Rejected by every other species in the galaxy, they had united as never before. The Human Alliance now controlled 47 star systems. With a population of 12 billion people living on dozens of worlds that they had transformed from barren rocks into gardens, Nathan's communicator buzzed. It was Dr. Linda Morgan, the ship's chief scientist. Her voice was tense. "Commander, you need to come to the bridge immediately. We're receiving a transmission that you have to see." Nathan and Maria exchanged glances and headed for the bridge. When they arrived, the main view screen displayed a message that made Nathan's blood run cold. It was a distress call, broadcasting on old human emergency frequency that had not been used in 3 centuries. The frequency had been part of a system that the collective had supposedly purged from all their databases after the expulsion. "Someone dug this up on purpose," Linda explained. "They wanted to make sure we would hear it. And Nathan, look at where it's coming from." The source coordinates appeared on screen. Valoria Prime, the homeworld of the species that had led humanity's expulsion. "Play the message," Nathan ordered. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed a Valorian, his crystalline body flickering with distress. Nathan recognized him from historical records. It was First Minister Valoth himself, the very alien who had condemned humanity 300 years ago. He looked old now, his once brilliant crystal form clouded and dim. "To any human vessel receiving this transmission," Valoth said, "this is First Minister Valoth of the Valorian Council. I know we have no right to ask anything of your people. I know what we did to you. I remember the vote. I remember the words I spoke. I have lived with the shame of those words for 300 years. The Valorian paused, and Nathan could see something in his alien eyes that he had never expected to see. Fear. Pure, overwhelming terror. "A darkness has come to our galaxy," Valoth continued. "Something from beyond our stars, from another galaxy entirely. They call themselves the Vorth, and they are destroying everything. The Kethrani homeworld has fallen. The Morthax Federation is gone. We have lost 4 of our 7 colony worlds in a matter of months. Our fleets are being crushed. Our people are being harvested." Harvested. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. The collective military cannot stop them. Nothing we have tried has worked. They adapt to our weapons, our tactics, our strategies. They learn faster than we can change. And they never, ever stop. Valoth lowered his head, a gesture of submission that Nathan had never seen a Valorian make. "We are begging you. Please, help us. Not for our sake, but for the sake of the billions who will die if the Vorth are not stopped. We know we do not deserve your mercy. We know we have no right to ask. But you are our only hope. The Galactic Collective is praying for humanity to save us." The message ended. The bridge was silent. Nathan stared at the empty space where Valoth's image had been. For 300 years, humans had wondered if the Collective would ever regret what they had done. Now they had their answer. "What do we do?" Maria asked quietly. Nathan thought of his grandfather, of the stories of suffering and loss, of the millions who had died because the galaxy had been too afraid to let humans live among them. He thought of every human who had grown up knowing that the stars were close to them, that they would never be welcome among the other species. And then he thought of something else. He thought of who humans were when they were at their best. Not vengeful, not cruel, but something better than their circumstances demanded. "Contact Alliance Command," Nathan said. "Tell them we have a decision to make." The stars were still cold. But for the first time in 300 years, they were asking for human warmth. The war room on New Terra was filled with the most powerful people in the human alliance. Admirals, generals, council members, and scientists had gathered to discuss something that had never happened before. The species that had thrown humanity into exile were now begging for help. Admiral Samuel Perry stood at the center of the room, his face grave. He was a tall man in his 60s, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind him, holographic displays showed images that made even the most hardened officers uncomfortable. "What you are about to see is classified at the highest level," Perry said. 6 months ago, the Galactic Collective made contact with a species from the Andromeda Galaxy. They call themselves the Vorth. The holographic display changed to show combat footage. Massive ships, black as the void between stars, moved through space like living creatures. They had no visible engines, no weapons ports that anyone could identify, and they seemed to pulse with a dark energy that hurt to look at directly. "The Vorth do not negotiate," Perry continued. "They do not take prisoners. They do not want territory or resources in any way we understand. They want only one thing: organic matter. Specifically, the organic matter of sentient beings." The footage showed a Vorth ship approaching a collective cruiser. Tendrils of dark energy reached out from the alien vessel, wrapping around the cruiser like the arms of some cosmic predator. Within seconds, the cruiser began to dissolve, its hull peeling away to reveal the crew inside. And then the crew began to dissolve too, their bodies breaking apart into clouds of particles that were drawn into the Varth. Ship. Several officers in the room looked away. One young lieutenant ran for the door, clearly about to be sick. "They harvest us," Perry said quietly. "They break down sentient beings to their base components and absorb them into their collective biomass. We don't know if the people they take die immediately or if some part of them remains aware inside the Varth. Honestly, I don't know which possibility is worse." Commander Nathan Cole watched the footage with a cold feeling in his stomach. He'd seen death before. He had fought pirates and defended human colonies from raiders. But this was something different. This was not war. This was consumption. How many systems have fallen? Asked Council Member Patricia Hayes, an older woman who had served on the Alliance governing body for 20 years. 14 collective worlds in 3 months, Perry replied. The Gethrani homeworld was the first major target. 8 billion insectoid beings gone in less than a week. The Morthax Federation tried to make a stand at their border. They had 300 warships. The Vorith destroyed them all in a single engagement. Dr. Linda Morgan stepped forward with additional data. We've analyzed what little information the collective has shared with us. The Varth ships have a unique property. They learn. Every weapon fired at them is analyzed and countered. Every tactic used against them is studied and defeated. The collective keeps trying the same approaches, and the Varth keep evolving past them. Then how do we fight them? Nathan asked. Linda pulled up more displays. The collective military was built on standardization. Every species uses the same weapons, the same ships, the same tactics. This was supposed to make them stronger through unity. Instead, it made them predictable. The Varth only had to adapt to one approach, and suddenly, the entire collective military became useless. Admiral Perry nodded. Which brings us to the reason we're all here. The Galactic Collective Council has formally requested humanitarian aid from the Human Alliance. They are asking us to help them fight the Varth. The room exploded into argument. Some officers shouted that the collective could burn for all they cared. Others argued that if the Vorith finished consuming collective space, they would turn their attention to humanity next. The debate went on for nearly an hour before Perry raised his hand for silence. "I've heard all the arguments," he said. "I know what the collective did to us. I lost family in the expulsion, just like many of you. My grandmother died on a refugee ship that was denied landing rights because the Valorians wanted to send a message. I grew up with that story, that anger, that pain." He paused, looking around the room. "But I also grew up with something else. I grew up with stories of who we could be when we chose to be better than our circumstances. I grew up learning that humanity's greatest strength was not our technology or our military. It was our capacity to rise above what was done to us and become something more." Council Member Hayes spoke next. "There's also a practical consideration. The Varth are heading in our direction. If the collective falls, we will be next. We can fight them on collective territory, with collective resources and personnel supporting us. Or we can wait until they reach our borders and fight them alone." Nathan stood up. "I've read the intelligence reports. The Varth have never encountered human technology. Our weapons, our ships, our tactics, everything we've developed in the last 300 years is completely unknown to them. We might be the one thing in this galaxy they haven't adapted to yet." The debate continued for another 2 hours. In the end, the vote was close, but the decision was made. The Human Alliance would send aid to the Galactic Collective. Not for revenge, not for payment, but because it was the right thing to do, as the officers filed out of the war room. Admiral Perry caught Nathan's arm. "You're going to lead the task force," Perry said. 50 ships, the best we have. You'll be the first human commander to enter collective space in 300 years. Nathan felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. What do I tell them when I get there? The species who threw us out, who let millions of us die, who called us dangerous and expelled us from civilization. What do I say to them? Perry looked at him with eyes that had seen too much pain and had somehow found a way past it. "Tell them that humanity remembers everything," he said. "Tell them that we remember the exile, the suffering, the death. And then tell them that we chose to come anyway. Because that's who we are. That's who we've always been. Let them figure out what that means." Nathan nodded and headed for the door. He had a fleet to prepare and a galaxy to save. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the Vorath were waiting. They had never met humans before. They were about to learn what that meant. The Human Alliance fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Valorian territory. 50 warships, gleaming silver against the black of space, hung in formation like a promise of hope. For 300 years, no human vessel had crossed this border. Now they had returned, not as conquerors or refugees, but as saviors. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the view screen as Valorian escort ships approached. He could see the hesitation in their movements, the way they kept their distance as if unsure whether to greet the humans or flee from them. Human vessels. "This is Valorian Defense Command." A voice came through the communication system. It was trembling. "You are cleared to proceed to Valoria Prime. First Minister Veloth awaits your arrival. On behalf of the Valorian people, we thank you for coming." Lieutenant Maria Santos glanced at Nathan. "They sound scared of us." "Good," Nathan replied. "Let them remember that feeling. Let them remember what it was like to need someone who owes you nothing." The journey to Valoria Prime took 12 hours. Along the way, the human fleet passed through systems that had once been denied to their ancestors. They saw the grand orbital stations of the Valorian civilization, massive structures of crystal and light that floated above garden worlds. But they also saw something else. They saw wreckage-dot debris fields stretched across space for thousands of kilometers. Shattered hulls of collective warships drifted in the void, their crews long since harvested by the Vorath. Escape pods blinked with distress signals that no one had answered. The beautiful civilization that had cast humanity out was now broken and bleeding. "There are survivors in some of those pods," Dr. Linda Morgan reported, her voice soft. "Life signs are weak, but they're there." Nathan made a decision that would define who humanity was going to be in this war. Signal the fleet. Detach rescue shuttles to every escape pod with life signs. We're not leaving anyone behind. "Sir, those aren't human survivors," one of the bridge officers said. "Those are the species who expelled us. The same ones who let our people die during the Exodus." Nathan turned to face the officer. "I know exactly who they are. And I know exactly who we are. Get those shuttles moving, now." By the time the human fleet reached Valoria Prime, they had collected over 8,000 survivors from the debris fields. There were Valorians with cracked crystalline bodies, Morthax engineers with burns covering their scaled skin, Kithrani refugees whose compound eyes had seen their homeworld consumed. Many of them had never met a human before. They stared at their rescuers with a mixture of gratitude, shame, and disbelief. One young Valorian, barely more than a child, approached Nathan as he walked through the refugee bay on his ship. "Why did you save us?" she asked. "My teachers told me that humans were monsters. They said you would destroy the galaxy if given the chance. But you saved me. You saved all of us. Why?" Nathan knelt down to look at her. "Your teachers were wrong about us. And we're going to prove it." The orbital station above Valoria Prime was the largest structure Nathan had ever seen. It was ancient, built at the height of Valorian civilization, and it had witnessed the rise and fall of countless empires. Now it would witness something new. The return of humanity to galactic affairs. First Minister Veloth waited in the docking bay. He was old, his crystalline form clouded with age and dimmed by grief. When he saw Nathan approach, he lowered himself into the deepest gesture of Valorian apology, his body nearly touching the floor. "Commander Cole," Veloth said, "I am the one who led the vote that exiled your people. I spoke the words that condemned humanity to the outer darkness. I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, and I do not ask for it. I only beg for your help, not for myself, but for the billions who will die if the Varth are not stopped." Nathan looked at the ancient alien for a long moment. Every part of him wanted to make Veloth suffer, to throw his own words back at him, to remind him of every human who had died because of his fear. But Nathan was not here for revenge. He was here for something more important. "Get up," Nathan said finally. "We didn't come all this way to watch you bow. We came here to fight." The war council that followed was the largest gathering of species in galactic history. Human officers sat alongside Valorian strategists, Morthax engineers, Kethrani tacticians, and representatives from a dozen other species. Many of them had never been in the same room as a human. Some still looked at Nathan's people with suspicion and fear. But they were all united by something stronger than old hatred. They were united by survival. Admiral Perry appeared via holographic projection from New Terra. He addressed the assembled council with the calm authority that had made him a legend in the human alliance. "The Varth have a weakness," he said. "You just haven't been able to exploit it." "We have tried everything," a Kethrani representative protested. "Every weapon, every strategy, every tactic in our arsenal. They adapt to all of it." "You've tried standardized responses," Perry corrected. "The same weapons, the same formations, the same approaches across your entire fleet. The Varth are designed to counter uniformity. They learn one solution and apply it to every threat. But humanity learned a long time ago that our greatest strength is our diversity." He pulled up tactical displays showing human fleet operations. Unlike the neat, organized formations of collective ships, human vessels moved in chaotic patterns that seemed to follow no central plan. "No two of our ships fight the same way," Perry explained. "Our captains are trained to improvise, to adapt, to think creatively in every moment. We don't have standard responses because we don't believe in standard problems. Every human commander is given the freedom to solve challenges their own way." Dr. Morgan stepped forward with additional information. "Our technology has developed along completely different lines than anything in the collective. The Varth have never encountered human engineering. They have no data on our weapons, our shields, our propulsion systems. For the first time, they will face something truly unknown." First Minister Veloth looked at the human officers with new understanding. "You are chaos," he said slowly. "You are the unpredictable element that we feared. But against the Varth, chaos may be exactly what we need." Nathan nodded. "We're going to show you how humans fight. And then we're going to show the Varth why the galaxy was right to be afraid of us." The War Council ended with a plan. Human ships would lead the defense of Valoria Prime. Collective vessels would provide support and learn from human tactics. Together, they would make a stand against the darkness. As the officers filed out to prepare for battle, Veloth approached Nathan one last time. "I have spent 300 years believing that exiling humanity was the right decision," the ancient Valorian said. "I was wrong. You are not monsters. You are something we never understood. You are hope." Nathan looked out the viewport at the stars, at the galaxy that had rejected his people and now needed them more than ever. "We'll see," he said. "The Varth are coming. Let's find out what hope is worth." The Vorath arrived at Valoria Prime exactly when the scouts had predicted. 200 ships emerged from a tear in space itself, a wound in reality that pulsed with dark energy. The organic vessels were massive, each one larger than the biggest collective battleship. And they moved through space like predators who had never known defeat. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the enemy approach. Behind him, the combined human and collective fleet waited in formation. 50 human warships and 300 collective vessels, the largest military force ever assembled in this region of space. Against them stood the darkness that had consumed 14 worlds, the largest. Vorath's ship broadcast a message that echoed through every communication system in the star system. The voice was strange, as if a million beings were speaking at once through a single throat. Organic matter detected. Harvesting will commence. Resistance is nutritional. Lieutenant Maria Santos gripped her console. They're moving into attack formation. Nathan opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Commander Cole. Remember your training. Remember who you are. And remember that today, we show the galaxy why they were afraid of us. Human vessels, you are free to engage at will. Show them what we can do. The battle began. Human ships did not fight like collective vessels. The collective ships formed neat lines, executed coordinated maneuvers, and fired in perfect unison. Human ships fought like wolves, each one operating on its own while maintaining awareness of the larger battle. They darted and weaved, attacked and retreated, appeared in unexpected places and vanished before the enemy could respond. The horizon's edge dove straight toward a cluster of Vorath ships, its engines burning at maximum power. Lieutenant Santos piloted the vessel through a storm of dark energy projectiles, rolling and spinning in ways that no automated system could predict. Weapons free, Nathan ordered. The ship's plasma lances fired, cutting through the organic hull of a Vorath cruiser. The enemy vessel shuddered and released a cloud of dark spores, trying to adapt to the new weapon. But before it could complete its adaptation, the horizon's edge was already gone, moving to attack from a different angle with different weapons. They're trying to analyze our attack patterns, Dr. Linda Morgan reported from her station. But we're not using patterns. Every attack is different. They can't predict what we'll do next because we don't know what we'll do next. Across the battlefield, human ships were causing chaos. The destroyer Relentless, commanded by Greg Patterson, was leading a squad of smaller vessels in hit-and-run attacks against Vorath supply ships. Every time the enemy moved to counter them, they changed tactics completely. "Patterson, watch your flank," Nathan warned over the communication channel. 3 Vorath ships closing on your position." "I see them, Commander," Patterson replied, his voice calm despite the danger. "We're going to try something stupid. Stand by." The Relentless suddenly cut its engines and went dark, drifting through space like a dead ship. The Vorath vessels slowed, confused by prey that had stopped running. In that moment of hesitation, Patterson reactivated his weapons and fired everything he had at the lead Vorath ship. The organic vessel exploded, showering its companions with debris. "That's how humans fight," Patterson laughed over the radio. "We do the stupid thing because you'll never expect the stupid thing." The battle raged for hours. Human ships took damage, lost crew, and sometimes died. But they kept fighting. When weapons failed, they improvised. When shields fell, they flew closer so the enemy couldn't target them effectively. When all seemed lost, someone always found a way to turn the tide. A collective cruiser, its hull breached and its weapons destroyed, broadcast a distress call. The Valorian crew was trapped, unable to escape, as 3 Vorath harvesters moved in to consume them. Nathan didn't hesitate. All nearby human ships converge on that Valorian cruiser. We're not losing anyone today. 4 human destroyers broke from their engagements and raced toward the damaged collective vessel. They formed a defensive screen around the Valorian cruiser, pouring fire into the Vorith harvesters. One human ship, the Swift Justice, took a direct hit that killed half its crew. It kept fighting anyway, its remaining personnel refusing to abandon their posts until every Valorian escape pod was safely away. The tide began to turn. The Vorith had never faced an enemy like this. They could adapt to weapons, but they couldn't adapt to chaos. Every time they thought they understood human tactics, the humans changed everything. It was like fighting water, trying to grab something that flowed through their grip. But the Vorith were not defeated. They regrouped around their command ship, the largest vessel in their fleet. Dark energy crackled along its surface as it prepared a weapon that had destroyed entire worlds. If it fired, Valoria Prime would be harvested in seconds. Commander Patterson saw what was happening. His ship, the Relentless, was the closest human vessel to the Vorith command ship. Its weapons were nearly depleted, its shields were failing, and half its systems were offline. But Patterson saw something else. He saw an opening. The Vorith command ship had exposed a vulnerable section while charging its weapon. A direct strike to that section might stop the attack. But it would have to be a very direct strike. "All hands, this is Commander Patterson," he said over his ship's internal communication. "We have a chance to end this. It's going to cost us everything. Anyone who wants to leave, get to the escape pods now. No one will think less of you." Not a single crew member moved. "That's what I thought," Patterson said quietly. "Helm, set course for the Vorith command ship. Maximum speed. We're going to ram them." The Relentless shot forward like a bullet, its damaged engines screaming with effort. Vorith defenders tried to intercept, but other human ships cleared a path, sacrificing themselves to give Patterson his shot. "Commander Cole," Patterson said over the fleet channel, "it's been an honor serving with humanity. Tell them we did our job." "Patterson, wait." Nathan started, but it was too late. The Relentless struck the Vorith command ship at its most vulnerable point. The human vessel's reactor core detonated on impact, releasing enough energy to crack a small moon. The explosion tore through the Vorith command ship, destroying its weapon systems and killing whatever intelligence controlled the enemy fleet. The remaining Vorith ships faltered. Their coordination broke. They began to move randomly, attacking without purpose, retreating without order. The combined human and collective fleet pressed the advantage, destroying the confused enemy vessels one by one. When the last Vorith ship was destroyed, silence fell over the battlefield. Debris stretched across the star system. Thousands had died on both sides. But Valoria Prime still stood first. Minister Velos' voice came over the communication system, trembling with emotion that Valorians rarely showed. "You saved us," he said. "After everything we did to your people, you saved us. And you died for us." Commander Patterson and his crew gave their lives to protect beings who had once cast their ancestors into exile. "I do not understand. How can you be capable of such hatred and such love at the same time?" Nathan looked out at the battlefield, at the wreckage of the Relentless, at the stars that had witnessed humanity's return to the galaxy. "Because we're human," he said simply. "We remember everything, the good and the bad, the love and the hate, and we choose every day which one to act on. Today, we chose love. Tomorrow, who knows? That's what makes us dangerous. That's what makes us human." The battle was over, but the war was just beginning, and humanity had announced their return in a way the galaxy would never forget. The war against the Vorith lasted another 2 years after the Battle of Valoria Prime. It was not easy. There were more losses, more sacrifices, more moments when it seemed like the darkness would consume everything. But humanity led the charge, and slowly, system by system, the galaxy began to push back. Commander Nathan Cole became a legend during those years. He led human and collective forces in dozens of engagements, always adapting, always finding new ways to confuse and destroy the enemy. Species that had once feared humanity now fought alongside them, learning the chaotic tactics that the Vorath could never counter. The final battle took place at the edge of known space, where the Vorath had established their last stronghold. A hive ship, larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, waited to launch a final assault on civilized space. The combined fleet of humans and former collective species gathered to stop it. It was a brutal fight. Ships were destroyed by the dozens. Crews gave their lives to buy precious seconds for their allies. But in the end, human innovation and the combined strength of a united galaxy proved stronger than the consuming darkness. When the Vorath hive ship finally exploded, sending a shockwave of light across the stars, the galaxy celebrated as one. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every species looked up at the sky and knew that they were safe. The ceremony to mark the end of the war took place on New Terra, the human homeworld in the frontier. It was the first time that representatives of every species had visited human space. They came in ships of crystal and ships of metal, in vessels that flew on light and vessels that crawled through space. They came to honor the species that had saved them. The great plaza of Unity City was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Humans stood alongside Valorians, Morthax, Kethrani, and dozens of other species. Billions more watched through broadcast, systems that reached every inhabited world. First Minister Veloth approached the podium. He moved slowly now, his ancient crystalline body dim with age. But his voice was clear as he addressed the gathered crowd. 300 years ago, he began, the Galactic Collective made its greatest mistake. We looked at humanity and saw something we did not understand. Your passion frightened us. Your creativity confused us. Your refusal to accept limits made us feel threatened. And so we cast you out, believing that we were protecting ourselves from chaos. He paused, and the plaza was silent. We were wrong. What we mistook for chaos was life itself. What we feared as aggression was the determination to survive and grow. What we called unpredictability was simply the courage to find new answers when old ones stopped working. We rejected you because you were different. And in doing so, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Veloth turned to face the human delegation, where Admiral Samuel Parry and Commander Nathan Cole stood with their officers. When the darkness came, you had every reason to let us burn. You remembered the exile. You remembered the suffering we caused. You remembered every life lost because of our fear and hatred. And yet, you came. You fought for us. You died for us. You saved beings who had shown you nothing but cruelty. The ancient Valorian lowered himself into the gesture of deepest apology, his body nearly touching the ground. The Galactic Collective is dissolved, he announced. It was built on fear and control, on the idea that difference was dangerous and uniformity was safety. That philosophy nearly killed us all. Today, we propose something new. A galactic alliance founded not on uniformity, but on diversity. Not on fear, but on trust. Not on the rejection of differences, but on the celebration of them. And we ask humanity to help us build it. Admiral Parry stepped forward. He was older now, his hair fully gray, his face lined with the weight of 2 years of war. He looked out at the crowd, at the species who had once expelled his ancestors, at the beings who now looked to humanity with hope instead of fear. We accept, he said simply. The crowd erupted in cheers. Beings of every species embraced each other, celebrating a future that had seemed impossible just a few years before. Old enemies stood together as new allies. Ancient hatreds began to fade in the light of shared sacrifice. Nathan Cole stood apart from the celebration, watching from the edge of the plaza. Lieutenant Maria Santos found him there, her dress uniform decorated with medals from a dozen battles. You should be out there, she said. "You're a hero. Everyone wants to shake your hand." Nathan shook his head. Patterson was the hero? And Collins and Rivera and all the others who didn't make it home. I'm just the one who survived. They stood in silence for a moment, remembering the friends they had lost. "Do you think it will last?" Maria asked. "The alliance, the peace, all of it?" Nathan looked up at the stars. The same stars that had watched humanity's exile 3 centuries ago. The same stars that had seen them build a new civilization from nothing. The same stars that had witnessed their return as saviors. "I don't know," he admitted. "Nothing lasts forever. There will be new challenges, new conflicts, new reasons for species to fear and hate each other. That's the nature of life. But I think we've proven something important today. We've proven that it's possible to choose differently, that we don't have to be defined by our worst moments, that forgiveness and cooperation are not weakness but strength." The celebration continued around them. A young Valorian child, the same one Nathan had spoken to on his ship 2 years ago, ran past with a human boy her age. They were laughing together, playing some game that required no common language or shared history. Just the simple joy of children being children. "That's what we fought for," Nathan said, watching them. "Not revenge. Not justice. Just the chance for kids like them to grow up in a galaxy where they can be friends instead of enemies." Maria smiled. "When did you become so wise, Commander?" "Somewhere between the 3rd and 4th time someone tried to kill me," Nathan replied with a small grin. "Near-death experiences are very educational." The ceremony ended with the signing of the Alliance Treaty. Human and alien leaders stood together, committing their species to a future of cooperation and mutual defense. It was not perfect. There would be disagreements, tensions, and setbacks in the years to come. But it was a beginning dot as the sun set on New Terra, painting the sky in colors of gold and red. Nathan walked through the streets of Unity City. Everywhere he looked, he saw beings of different species talking, sharing meals, and beginning to build the relationships that would shape the galaxy's future. 300 years ago, humanity had been cast out because they were different. Too passionate, too creative, too unpredictable. The galaxy had looked at them and seen chaos. Now that same galaxy looked at them and saw hope. Nathan stopped at a memorial wall that had been erected in the plaza. It held the names of every human who had died in the war against the Vorath. Commander Greg Patterson's name was near the top, along with his entire crew. Below them were thousands more, each name representing a life given so that others could survive. "We did it," Nathan said quietly, speaking to the names on the wall. "We showed them who we really are. Not monsters, not chaos, just humans." And that was enough. The stars began to appear overhead, bright points of light in the darkening sky. They were no longer a boundary or a prison. They were an invitation, a promise, a future. Humanity had come home, and the galaxy would never be the same.